Table Talk is not your typical D&D ttrpg podcast. We are not here to run you through our whole campaign.
We're here to talk about everything else in the space of tabletop roleplay.
I'm your host, Alejandra Wilhelm.
And I'm also your host, Mariah Gresham.
And we're your tabletop roleplay girlies. Alrighty, and we are live back at it with another Table Talk episode. Today we are joined by another wonderful guest, someone that we had all the pleasure of meeting at PAX. Would you like to give us a brief little introduction about yourself?
Yes, hi, I am Juicy Garland, a Boston area drag queen and super nerd. I do lots of actual play streams, and I have an actual play podcast, All Our Faults, which is a Monster Hearts actual play.
Incredible. So this week, what we kind of talked to you a little bit about PAX and wanted so excitedly to kind of have an episode about is we wanted to talk a little bit about what you've experienced, especially in the world of like TTRPG and this industry, and kind of the shifts that you've seen since things like, for example, like Dimension 20s, like Dungeons and Drag Queens, and how that's kind of shifted things for you.
So I have been doing drag for a handful of years now. I really started jumping into drag back in maybe 2018, 2017, but I really picked up during the pandemic. I had the lovely opportunity to start doing tons and tons of drag during the pandemic with Charlie Hyde's Drag Bingo, and every single week for over a year, I started sewing a whole new look, putting makeup on every single week, styling brand new wigs, creating a whole new complete look every single week, doing Drag Bingo with Charlie, who is incredibly supportive. And I tend to think of her as my drag great-grandmother. But ultimately, I shortly after that started jumping into actual plays, because not only was the pandemic happening, but I felt like my style of drag, which isn't quite weird enough or conventional enough for the Boston drag scene, didn't really fit in anywhere here. So when I started jumping in, and as I continued to get better with my drag, and as I started to really build acumen in actual plays, I found that casting calls didn't always come back to me as much as I saw other like start outs who were as good as, or maybe not quite as good as I was, were sort of hearing back from others. And then there was a definite pickup after Dungeons and Drag Queens happened. So that was a really interesting observation for me, because suddenly drag queens were cooler, which has been great for me, but also it created, I think, not only more awareness, but sort of a permission structure for really loud and obnoxious queer people like me to have more of a space to participate.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome. I love that there is quite a bit of like Dungeons and Dragons in general as becoming more, I guess, common and mainstream as it's entering, like we've had the movie. Now we've had this, like the movie was a big hit.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate was a huge hit. So both of the movie and gaming industry, and then, Vox Machina came out, and like there's shows now that are happening, like animated shows that people can indulge in, that are like, I guess, more easily digestible for people that aren't in the hobby.
Yes. And there's always been a space for me in the hobby. Sometimes I've had to punch my way in, but I've always been able to find a space. I mean, I've been playing D&D and other games for, oh God, I'd hate to age myself so hard, but about 20 years, like since before college. But really, I first played Dungeons and Dragons proper in my freshman year of college. We played 3.5, and that was my introduction to D&D proper. And we played that until we played 4E, and then we stopped playing 4E and played Pathfinder, and then I found indie RPGs, which were way better. And that was where I really found my love of sort of tabletop stuff, just because there was so much more out there to play. But yeah, I've been able to carve a space for myself, and I've found welcome spaces the whole time, but I had to really look for them. But more and
Mhm.
more, I haven't had to look so hard, and that's been
Yeah.
nice to see. And in the last few years, it's been way easier, which has been great. And the hobby really has exploded, which has helped.
100%. And I think also literally just a matter of like a couple days ago, I saw that like NPR released an article about like the top movies and shows of 2023, and like Dimension 20's specifically Dungeons and Drag Queen season made it onto that list amongst like the list of shows that were the top of 2023, which
Oh,
I
that's
remember
That's
seeing that
amazing.
and I was like,
wild.
that's insane.
That's
That's awesome.
fantastic. I mean, there's a big crossover, I think, between like nerd populations and queer populations.
Mhm.
So I'm not that surprised. I mean, there are a lot of nerds who love Drag Race. There are a lot of nerds who love Bob the Drag Queen.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's not a shock to me, but it's really cool to see. And I mean,
100%.
if you look at Baldur's Gate is queer as hell. I mean,
The
it's
gayest game
the
in the
Super.
gayest
West.
frickin' video game I have ever
Truly.
goddamn seen. I mean, everyone is
Listen,
banging that vampire, and we all know it.
they were
We
in there
won't
and they're
Yeah.
like,
all
pump
admit
some
it.
more gay in there. It's not gay enough. We have not
No, no.
reached maximum gay.
I mean, it's pretty damn gay. It could be gayer. It could always be gayer. I
It could
mean,
always
It could
Astarion
always be
art
gayer.
glitter, we know it. It could have come in smell-o-vision. It would have been deeply unpleasant. I would have loved it.
That's a setting. If you could turn that setting on and off, I would be down.
I
Yeah.
want it aggressively on. I want it hard to turn off. I want it to be a John Waters style smell-o-vision where it is
I
repugnant.
I appreciate that and love and respect that for you in particular. I am not that strong.
Yeah, I don't know that I could have done that dead spider scene with
Oh god.
smell-o-vision.
I
Oh,
mean,
fuck the dead spider scene. What about the alive spider scene? I tried to go back and do that because I had to go back and redo a bunch of shit in my first playthrough because I got to a point and I'm like, I can't beat this. I skipped too many side quests accidentally, and
mhm.
now I'm being murdered by monks. And so I tried to go back, like when you go under that well and where all the spiders are, I couldn't do it. I am too arachnophobic.
Oh
I'm like,
no.
I would like to unzip my skin and step out of it, and I will not be doing this. Fuck the XP you gain. I don't
I
care if that big spider gives you 4 levels. I will not be killing her.
I have a deep dark confession, which is I have yet to finish my first playthrough.
Oh, same. I would
Neither have we.
Oh, okay, good. I am in
We're
good
right there in the
company.
dark with you.
Yeah.
And that's
I'm in act 2, but I've not well, no, I'm not even yeah, I'm
I'm
kind of in
like
act 2.
halfway through Act 1 maybe, and that's because my life has been so damn busy,
Same.
that I'm just so mad and salty that I haven't yet made out with Astarion, that it just didn't hand that to me on a silver platter. I am so salty, but I've just been so busy that I played and played and played, and then life got in the way in like late September that I haven't been able to get back to it, and I need to so desperately. I played a little bit actually just before PAX Unplugged, before we met.
Mhm.
And now I just need to get my ass back in front of that game so I can
Yeah.
make sweet love to that sad boy vampire who hits
Sad,
all the right marks for me.
sad little Eastern European gay porn vampire.
I
The
mean,
yeah.
it's
The
like
game
they
will
made it for
gaslight
me.
you with him too, where it's like one of Ollie's playthroughs, he just did not approach her at all. And I'm like, how?
No,
How did
he
he
What?
not
turned me
approach you at
down
all?
actually very roughly. And I was like, cool, fuck me. And then literally all of my companions are like, nah.
What?
Halson is like the only one that kind of is interested, but it's again a long con game because you don't even get to
Wait,
like
that slut
start
didn't
stuff
want
with
you?
him. Yeah. And like the thing is, I've had him be super into me in other playthroughs, but this is like the
Amazing.
game that the one playthrough that I'm actually making it to fucking Act 3 with.
Mhm.
Um, and nobody wants to touch her at all. I was like, cool, she's gonna fuck the emperor, I guess, and like destroy the
Let's.
world as
She's gonna find
fucking
like fucking Yasified Gortash.
yeah. I made my
Incredible.
I modded the fuck out of my game and I made Yosified Gortash because of the fact that the game was like a handsome young man with a charming smile, and then you see what it is, and I'm like, no, incorrect.
That man looked like he lived in a pig pen for 6 months and never seen a
So I
toothbrush.
gave him a
Like,
facelift.
sir.
He still got like a little rugged, like the scruff and the whatever. I didn't fully clean him up. But
so you didn't make him a femboy, is what you're telling me?
No.
Well, like he's still got a little bit of a twink face. I'm not gonna lie, but he's still got like the dark circles under his eyes. Like he could sleep a little bit longer. He's got just like scruff. He's not full.
He's a clean metrosexual.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I did that, and like that's the first time I've ever met Gortash like 1v1 or whatever, and I was like, oh, once you get to it, Juicy, like that first real talk you have one-on-one with Gortash, I was like, I fucked myself, because now he's hot and the things that he's saying are literally making me want to look Karlach dead in her face and be like, I'm sorry, bitch, but we're about to side with this man. Like he's gonna say jump and I'm already in the air.
This is how good people do bad things, and I'm here for it.
Yeah. And after I got to that point in my initial playthrough where I was like, I'm going to have to redo God only knows how much. And I was sad about it. It's like Ollie was staying with me and she's like, just start a new playthrough. So I started a full like Dark Urge playthrough where Ollie and I had decided collectively as a group before we started. And we're like, okay, we have to roll.
Pure evil dirge.
Yeah. If it's pure evil dirge, then we can't have like the good leaning party members. So like, and we like, you know, everybody can lean good, but we have to take the people who are already initially leaning toward fuckery and then like, you know, and make them worse. So she's like, you can't have Karlach. Like Karlach's got to go.
Wait, can you explain something to me? Is there a way to play where you play good people?
I have a really hard time. So good people is a fun and very obscure designation.
So that alignment's an option in the game.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I have a really hard time being mean to video game characters.
Honestly, same.
It hurts me inside. And so like when Ollie and I would play together or something and we would be trying to play like a Dirge playthrough, she would have to hold me accountable to like not picking nice options. So I'm like, cool, we're going to go full send on this one. And she's like, you have to kill Karlach. And I'm like, cool, we are going to, in fact, kill Karlach. And then we did. And then she guilted me about it. She's like, I can't believe you killed her. I'm like, I'm sorry. What the fuck do you mean? You told me to kill her. Her head is in my inventory right now.
So it was so rough to watch.
I know
it wasn't great.
I know I haven't played much of the game yet, but I think part of my problem and why Astarion keeps you drinking from me every night, but the bitch hasn't smooched me, is because I keep fucking making him disapprove because I'm too goddamn empathetic and I'm so mad.
Oh yeah.
I like
you have
don't want to murder the
slaves.
I don't want to make people angry. I just want to help, and I'm just like, fuck, he disapproved again.
See, he disapproved of a lot of the stuff I did, but I was just kind of a brat to him in camp, and that still worked.
Oh, are you like a bratty sub?
Not in sometimes quasi, not fully.
Okay.
Like our friend Bex is a.
There was a lot in the way you said that. By the way, I'm tempted to unpack it, but I won't.
We're not going to unpack it on this podcast.
Yeah, that's our next podcast.
That's a different podcast.
On a phone call or a future podcast.
Excellent.
I have my leanings, but I don't have the energy to maintain that shit 24/7. I don't have it in me. I don't always
sub your.
I don't have that dog in me.
I do not, in fact, have that dog in me.
That's precious.
Yeah, no. With Astarion, I think you have to, like either not bring him on certain things that you know you're gonna make good choices, and bring him on things that you know you're gonna do some fuck shit. Like if you want to fuck around with the gobbies and you're like, I'm gonna do war crimes here, and he's gonna love it, then bring him.
Yes.
But then when you're talking to the Grove people, maybe keep him back at camp.
Okay.
But there's like a book that you're gonna find. It's like a full-on Necronomicon situation, and he's gonna ask for it. Give it to him.
Okay.
And that's gonna win. It's gonna win him a lot of good bonus points with him.
Yeah.
I don't think I've gotten there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. See, that's the kind of shit that really tempts me, like the evil, creepy books that will warp my mind.
Yeah.
That's what gets me going.
But
So,
also
yeah,
Yeah.
charming.
Give
excellent.
that shit to him, and anything to do with like his story stuff, just be
Yeah, of
like,
course. Yeah.
I support you, King. And let
Oh, I'm never calling him king. I'm gonna call him baby. He baby.
He's not
Oh,
king.
yeah.
He is not, in fact, a king. Yeah.
No, him baby.
He is a
Yeah.
lowercase,
Yeah.
like little b baby.
Now
Little
there is a
baby.
bratty sub right there,
Yeah.
Astarion, 100%.
Oh,
Talks
yeah.
big. He
Yeah.
will be Little Spoon. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, no, from the jump, like my first character that I started playing was like my little hex blood druid or whatever, and she was gonna be a dirge, and she's the one I actually like went pretty far with. And yeah, I have my own proclivities, and when he bratted at me, I was like, "Oh, shut that shit down real fast." He was
Right?
like, "I'm in love with you." And I was like, "Cool."
Yeah. Just be mean to him.
Yeah, basically same.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, "Oh, no, that doesn't work
Not
for me.
today, AA
Not
Ron.
today."
I was like, oh, it's so cute when you talk back to me. Watch while I smack you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
I mean, if you do
Um,
that, I feel like you like that's fine. You're
Yeah,
good.
I figured
yeah.
as much. I was playing and I was following the story so well, and I got a bunch of the main party characters, and I went to go, commit a genocide on the goblins like you're
Mhm.
supposed to.
Yeah, as
And
you do.
then I accidentally ended up in the Underdark, and then
Yeah.
literally
Me
60
too.
hours later, I was going to kill Duergar and trying to free slaves, and I didn't know what happened, but I spent so much time doing it, and now I can't undo it, and it's all above my level slash pay grade, and I can't
Mhm.
escape, and I don't know what to do. I'm stuck.
I did the exact same thing, and I was literally like, "Am I just fucking stuck down here? Like, I have no idea." You can fast travel back out of there. It took
Yeah,
me so long
the
to figure that
trouble
out.
the trouble is that I blew up the barrier, and now there's the jerk you have to work with to kill all the Dwergar, but then he wants
Mhm,
to murder you, but everyone's
mhm.
too powerful at because you haven't accumulated enough experience to level up to their
Yeah.
level yet. So I can't back out because there's a time limit. So then do they
Oh.
all just disappear, and or do I lose that quest line? Because I have to fast travel
Mm.
away. So I don't know quite what to do, and I don't wanna,
You
cheat and
maybe
read. So I'm
you maybe
You'll
can
be
fast travel
okay.
out, and then if you
Yeah,
had to,
you may just
restart
have to
it.
take the L on that one, but it's not his stuff is not so pivotal that it'll fuck up anything later.
I guess.
Honestly, even when that dude makes it out of there, he does not meet a you'll walk into his situation later and be like, "Ooh, that sucks for him." But he is not like a main pivotal
Yeah,
thing.
okay,
Like
okay.
his story kind of ends there. So
Alright.
it's not a big loss if you dip.
Yeah, alright. We'll see what happens. I'll figure it out. I'm gonna go back because I really need to, smooch that vampire at some point. I'm not getting through
Yeah.
life without having done that.
I do love that element of like I do love that Baldur's Gate leaned so heavily not only on all the wonderful parts that we genuinely love about like TTRPGs, but like
Yeah.
also the queer inclusiveness of it all.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
to the
Mhm.
point where like a lot of like cis het men were like, I'm uncomfortable that all the male characters are hitting on me as much as like the female ones are or
Well,
whatever.
even
And I'm
even just
like,
the fluidity of choices where it's so easy to go back and forth between one
yeah,
option and another where there's no punishment either for choosing to say pursue a storyline with Astarion or then pursue a storyline with Lae'zel. You can be fluidly bisexual, pansexual, straight, gay, however you want to do it, and it's fine, and it
polyamorous,
doesn't
which
matter. Yeah.
loved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fantastic because so many games have tried to make these options, but then they kind of like push you into one kind of choice or another, or they punish you for making
Yes.
one kind of choice
Yeah.
over another in the story. And this game
Yeah.
has found a way to let you fluidly make as many options or make as many choices within the options as
Mhm.
you damn well please. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of amazing. And they
It's
allowed the actors to really explore that too, which is
yeah.
phenomenal.
It's one of the things that I love so much. Like, it's one of the big things that got me into video games, because one of the first video games that I really like hardcore played was things like Dragon Age and Mass Effect, respectively. And those were the first video games I encountered that gave me the option to romance people, and romance people that were not like just straight options. And of course, the community in general, cough, cough, Garrus. But even then in general, like the community was always like, again, asking for like a little bit more from those developers and stuff. So, because like, yeah, they would give you some queer options, but you were limited because, like, for example, in Dragon Age, some companions can only be romanced by certain races and
Yep.
certain genders.
Oh, I remember.
And you're locked out of that option. And I know, like, for example, Dragon Age Inquisition, if you play as a female, in most of the genders, you have a ton of options. But I remember talking to some of my male friends, and they were like, honestly, as a male wanting to be a straight male, you don't have that many options in that story. Because a lot of like the major things, I think it like there's always like a weird canon of like you can play whatever you want, but then there's like a specific set of like race and gender choices that you're like, this was the canon choice, because you get so much more story in there. And I think like Inquisition was more like a female elven inquisitor is like the main thing that drives the story if you choose that. But everything was kind of catered to that.
I can understand it at the time on some level, because it took so many more resources to animate that stuff and like translate the voice recordings into action in the game. It just took more to make it work. But it does feel a little lazy and a bit like an excuse, especially for a AAA game at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, if you're already making all these choices available, like you may as well commit to the full bit. And I remember like Andromeda, for all the flack that it got, once it actually got patched and it was playable, I like was one of the first times that they gave you options, as in like you could still technically complete a romance with multiple choices. Wasn't necessarily polyamory. It was more like I'm having casual like hookup situations with multiple people in my party, but I still have to pick one main person. And once I've kind of picked that main person, I've kind of moved on from these other choices. So it was still, like you said, limited, and it's kind of like guiding you in that respect. Whereas like Larian Studios really gave us a fully fluid experience.
That's cool.
And that's what I'm so interested to see, how that affects other games that come out. Like, bringing up Dragon Age is like, Ali and I know we've talked about this a ton, because like Dreadwolf, everyone is like, anytime there's a new trailer, I fully like immediately shove it in front of Ollie's face. I'm like, consumed immediately.
And I'm like, I've already consumed it and made it part of my soul.
Yeah, but it's like, there's no way that Baldur's Gate doesn't have like a radical influence on.
Well, of course.
Other
I mean,
video games.
Yeah.
Like,
you can take a look at
like Breath of the Wild or Elden Ring, or like those big Hallmark games that really shifted the industry. And so it's like, I'm insanely curious to see what other, like, what else Laren will do, and then also what other like game development houses
you can take a look at prior games too that have been really successful, that have taken some chances, right? Like Dragon Age did, and it was very successful. So other games took the similar risks and were successful as well, and more of them did after that. You even like Animal Crossing had sort of gender fluid options, which was sort of unique for Nintendo, but also other games really weren't doing like fully fluid like clothing options. And Animal Crossing came out and just went, sure, go ahead, fine, whatever. We'll call it style. Screw the word gender, which was one of my favorite things a game had ever done at the time. Because that makes way more sense to call it style than like gender, whatever, who cares? And suddenly games just left and right were finding other words to use and letting anyone choose whatever option they wanted. And it wasn't every game, but a lot of them, because Animal Crossing was so successful during the pandemic. And I can't imagine that following on Dragon Age. Thank you, brain fart.
Boulder.
I am an adult old woman. Baldur's Gate, like, and its success, right? Following that, there's no way that like AAA games and mid-ranking like budget games are not going to take a look at this and provide far more fluid like romance options in their story games that are open world. And I mean, this has been the year of open world games and their ridiculous success.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're no doubt going to see more open world games with fluid story options, bar none. And then romance options are going to be central, given how Baldur's Gate came out after the brand new best open world Zelda game that you could imagine,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
completely steamrolled it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to dethrone that, because truly anytime that, like a new Legend of Zelda game comes out, you're like, that's it. Everybody else everything else that has happened up until this point is,
Yeah, I mean, I played the hell out of
nothing,
Tears of the
because they're going to
Kingdom,
take that
and
game
Yeah.
of the year title.
and I'm like, this is obviously game of the year. I don't see how
Right, like
it could not be. Like, it's like, I mean, yeah, a lot of my, the nitpick issues with it is more the fact that it's on a Switch platform, just
right, but
than on the PC or on like a PlayStation. But then to go and play Baldur's Gate, and it's like, oh, cool, like everyone else pack up your shit. We're done.
yeah,
Like,
and
don't release anything else between now and the end
right.
of the year. Just ride this one. It's fine.
Like it's just amazing how Tears of the Kingdom is one of the best games I have ever played.
Yeah,
It
it's
is certainly
incredible.
a top 5, if not second favorite game I've ever played outside of Baldur's Gate, right? And it was incredible that it could be topped, let alone in the same year.
Yeah,
And it was.
absolutely bananas.
And it is those additional details of those personal storylines you can pursue in addition to that core narrative.
Yeah.
I think that really made Baldur's Gate what it was and how it superseded Tears of the Kingdom. But like to sort of take it back to TTRPGs,
Mhm.
we've never really had to worry so much about whether or not we had these options in tabletop because
Mhm.
we
Yes.
provided them if we wanted them.
Right.
And I think there have always been riskier choices, especially in the indie RPG world, which is why I've loved it so much for so
Mhm.
long. Um, eh, we'd never had to wait until now for stuff like this because games
Mhm.
like Monster Hearts have been out. We've had games like what is it? Oh my god, the Sword Lesbians. There we go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sword Lesbians
Thirsty
has been
Sword
out for a while.
Lesbians.
Thirsty Sword Lesbians, there we go. That's been out for a while. I have it. I've yet to convince people to play it because my friends are lame and all they want to
I
do is play
desperately wanna
5e like
play it.
jerks. Yes.
I desperately want to play it too. So
Don't
if you
tempt
ever
me.
want to
I
run
will
something
fly to
online, we
Boston.
may help out.
Hell yeah.
I
Or like
love you. I wanna play that game, and I love Boston. I will fly and play
I
Sword Lesbians with
welcome
you.
you.
Don't
Or like
tempt me.
even like Vampire the Masquerade is queer as hell, and that's been out since
Mhm.
Yes, it is,
the
baby.
90s at least, if not the late 80s. I can't remember when it was first published. But like,
Original BTM. Yeah, it's
yeah,
pretty old.
first
Like,
edition is old.
yeah.
But
And
like,
it's always
Yeah.
been like all them old ass vampires. It's like, yeah, my canon is like, I'm sorry, nobody's straight
yeah,
anymore. Like
and
you've
like
lived for eons. You got to mix it up.
Cyberpunk is what, 87 or 89, I think. I think
Mhm.
it's late 80s, and that's always been like queer forward. Like tons and tons of games have been this entire friggin' time. And
Yeah.
we've
Even
always
newer ones, like I know
yeah.
Perils and Princesses, for example, which we did that interview with Ryan who wrote it. It's again a very feminine coded game. However, even within the rule book, it does not limit to gender of just women, or you just have to be a princess. You could play a prince. You could play whatever you want, and like it's that thoughtfulness towards the community that like thoughtfulness and awareness of the community that wants to enjoy those games. It's it is very much a make it what you want, and you don't have to limit things
Yeah.
or pigeonhole yourself.
Yeah, and like that example, and Juicy like bringing up the Animal Crossing example because I hadn't fully thought about that in that like way before, and like it's so fucking good, and I love that. And things like those, like little things of the way you write things or the way you present information is something that like literally anyone can do. You don't have to be Laren, right, to do that. You don't have to be Nintendo. Like it's just taking that like a little bit of time to be more considerate or open-minded in how you write things. And that's really cool. and
Oh,
really encouraging.
absolutely. And it doesn't take really much, right?
No.
Like it's small, thoughtful considerations that make a huge difference in the way you present the information and package it. So, like Nintendo just saying style instead of calling something gender and then
Mhm.
stopping putting them in separate buckets. That's all they did. They
That's it.
literally
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
organize them in different
You
buckets. It would just
simplified your
feel work.
UI a little bit.
That was
Yeah.
it,
That's it.
right?
Yeah,
And
'cause
like,
at the end, it's a simpler UI, but then it's on the person's experience. It's that person being like, huh, like I can just do whatever I want, and them exploring that freedom.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't have it doesn't have to be blatant. It doesn't have to be overt or anything. It just can be
Yeah, you
that
don't have to
simple.
load into Animal Crossing and be like, is this owl friend gay or not? Like, no, that's not necessary. You can
Right.
just
Well, and that's why, like, for example, this movement moving away from using the term race and instead moving to ancestry, right? It
Mm,
Mhm.
That's something that D&D is starting to do, but like Paizo has been doing that for years. And that's something that I have had a ton of respect for because not only is that moving away from racializing the difference between like a goblin and a human and an elf, which
Yep.
has all sorts of
Mhm.
loading of term and
Oh yeah.
tone, right?
Yeah, that
But
goes
yeah.
right back to Tolkien.
also, well, it goes well before that, but he wasn't so
And
great
true,
about it.
yeah.
But like it also stops otherizing them by default. So, well, we tend to really like white categorize elves and think of them as pretty, comma, and good people.
Mhm.
Uh, Goblins tend to be racialized in a negative stereotypical way, or
Mhm.
orcs do, right? It's
Mhm.
not healthy. And I'm thankful that my friend group has never really done that, which is great. But my
Yeah.
friend group, I think,
Yeah,
is
we haven't
fairly
either.
unique. Um, but by calling it an ancestry rather than race, I think that prevents the default otherization. So that way it takes us away from evil as a default category for a race. And then
Yeah.
it allows a more nuanced way to examine how we're viewing these people because elves
Mhm.
can and should sometimes be evil and are
Oh,
often
totally.
For sure.
awful, right? Like
Yeah.
even in Tolkien, there are shitty
Yeah.
elves who we do
Or
not like,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, and it's like that conversation flows in really interesting to like the conversation around alignment in
Yeah.
D&D and like should alignment be something you choose or should that not? And like what we tend to do is like we don't really state an alignment. And like we
No.
did in past games, but like in our Strixhaven game we don't, and like in games I've run I don't either. And I like moving away from that because it lets you feel out who your character is and why they make the choices they make like on your own and organically, and it's not
Mhm.
like, oh well, I said I'm going to be a good or a lawful character so I do XYZ, or I said I'm
No.
chaotic, or I said I'm evil so I do XYZ. It's like it allows more nuance and more
Yeah.
complication. And then in game in like systems like VTM where like you are by like your existence alone implies that you are a monster because you have to harm other people to live, then it's like, okay, cool, that just goes out the window. It's like we're starting from
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
I
Starting from monstrosity and what you do outside of that is
right, and it's
dependent
just
on you.
what you exactly.
Yeah, I will say I think there is space for alignment, but I think you have to examine what you're doing with it, right? So I think
Mhm.
alignment as an externality to people is interesting and can be useful. So I think as a cosmological factor, like for like angels and demons and devils and
Mhm.
etc., like those things make sense to have an alignment. An angel
Totally.
as a
Yeah.
lawful good being, a demon as a chaotic evil being. Those things make sense.
Yes,
But
for
like
sure.
it doesn't make sense for a person to have an alignment to me.
Yeah,
However,
No.
because good people will do bad things
right,
given the
exactly.
right
Just no,
circumstances and vice
yeah,
versa.
no person can be good or evil or purely chaotic or purely good or ordered. All people are somewhere in the neutral zone. They just
Right.
are. And they try to be one thing or another, but they inevitably fail at some point. And we all try to, as players, play those like archetypes, but we all fail because we are people. And I think that the GM can use the alignment system to point out when like a cleric or a paladin or someone beholden to an alignment by an external cosmological factor, like then you can add tension and conflict with those individual characters because they're not sort of living up to that standard. Suddenly that impacts them in some way. But I
Yeah.
like people who want to play an alignment like as if it's their character's truth, that doesn't make sense to me. And that's not useful.
No,
Yeah.
me either. Yeah, I like what you said about it being the difference in like a celestial or infernal being or whatever. And then if you are, a warlock or a paladin or a cleric or something where like you have made a deal or accepted some amount of power where you are then sort of giving up your right to be judged as a human, and you are now being judged according to the rule book of whatever you're getting power from, whether that's,
Right.
you know, an angel, a devil, whatever the hell, like that's cool because it does add a different weight and complication toward like making those choices and picking those classes versus just like cool, I say a prayer sometimes and then I do the magic. Like it adds a different like consequences there. If you said you wouldn't be a murder hobo and you're out murder hoboing.
Yeah, there should be some kind of, I think, consequence or like outcome of making those choices when you're selecting a character who is driven by those like character motivations. I don't know. For me, character motivation is so important that I would want to have that natural tension, but I also am the kind of player who likes failure and conflict all the time.
Totally.
True.
So
Yeah.
like I just embrace it all the time. So that's something that I like to see in my gameplay. And that might make me different than other players, but I think it should be present nonetheless.
Yeah, like my Strixhaven character, she's a vengeance paladin to a death god who is has some very strong opinions on like people messing with the sanctity of life and death
Mhm.
when it comes to like not necessarily necromancy if it's consensual, but like the non-consensual, so like making reborns,
Right.
like her. She's like not big fan of that. And so I'm having a lot of fun coming out of her arc and like her going through the process of trying to untangle her own emotions of like rage and desire for vengeance versus the wrath of her god. And it being like at what is her emotion and what is her god's emotion or feeling or desire driving her and making her more reactive and making her just be quicker to violence than she maybe would be or should be. And like that has been really interesting.
That does sound cool. Or like, imagine if you were a warlock who had a pact with Mephistopheles and you were driving over the speed limit. What happens to you? Because you've broken the law.
Mm.
Just get yoinked
Right? Like,
immediately.
does like a devil cop show up on a motorcycle with lights behind you and then
Yeah.
take years
Like
off
shoot
your
your
life?
tires out. Yeah.
You're like, just get off, give you a ticket and you lose a year off your life because you drove over the speed limit. So suddenly the rest of your life you have to drive like a grandma.
Now I'm just picturing all the people that Mephistopheles would have to employ
Mhm.
to like keep up with all of these weird mortal rules.
Yeah.
And it's like, God damn it, I got put on speed limit duty again and not like whatever the cool one is.
Well, hell is a bureaucracy, of course.
True. Yeah, honestly,
It's
yeah.
just a bunch of corporations. Each level of hell is a different business structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just limitless, like shitty low level devils who hate their infinite lives because they're just rolling around in the muck of hell. And once in a while, they go do cop duty to pull people over for driving like a half mile an hour over the speed limit.
I would stay in Devil Jail. I'm so sorry. I am a big, like, view that speed limit and add 5 to 10 girly, but I also like live in Texas where there's much room and a lot of highway. I don't do that when I go to like other cities where there's like not just 6 lanes with which to drift through.
It's a time. I wanted to go back to like your comment about like the ancestries and the races, because like one of the things that we do, and again it all ties back into that, like we never had to wait for these changes to happen really in ttrpg individually, because you dictate what happens at your table. So depending on the group and depending on the DM, if you don't agree with certain things from, how D&D has traditionally been run, you can find a different system or make up your own rules and make up your own world. Like for my world, for example, like the races or the ancestry don't immediately tie anybody to anything. It's like it's a descriptor of the character, but they also are residing in a city that is an entire huge melting pot. It's like very advanced, so like all of the different races just reside there, and it's like nobody blinks an eye, kind of thing. It's just who they are. But then there's things like, one of my favorite things I've implemented, and like Mariah loves this, is my Gatsby orcs. I found a bunch of art of great Gatsby orcs in really fancy like flapper dresses and
1920
and whatever.
Era.
And I'm like, sick. This is like
amazing.
They're all in that like upper echelon, mixing and mingling with all the other kind of like more noble like tiered people, but they're all again very mixed races, and like interracial marriages are okay and normal and whatever. But like my Great Gatsby orcs, love them. But fancy orcs, yes.
I love
wasn't
that.
really
So
like,
for us, I think a lot of it too depends on the voices people choose when they're really young for these like individual kinds of characters. So our friend group, normally we have just a perma GM, Sean. I love him so much. He's a ham, and he's always done voices for everything long before the internet influenced any of us. So he years and years ago picked Cockney as the voice for orcs.
Incredible.
So
Peaky Blinders orcs.
Yeah, they've always just talked like this. So that's just orcs is for us. Like that's our orc voice is like a bad Cockney accent with a low rumble. So whenever I think of an orc, it's never been really racialized for me because it's just a bad English accent.
Yeah.
So I just imagine them like slinging smelly fish on the street side by like dangerous cock.
cigar.
Yes, with like a flat cap. And just yelling
like overalls.
And there are like little orphan goblins running around selling newspapers, and the orcs are yelling at them. Like that's my mind.
Incredible.
I love it. Remind me to send you all my Great Gatsby orc art.
Yes, please.
that I've collected.
I need to see this.
It's quite wonderful. But yeah, it is definitely a avenue of making it your own, taking out those things that you're like, this doesn't need to be here, and
Absolutely.
like I don't need to rely on these like weird cruxes to like make someone evil or make someone an antagonist. For me, it's always been more about like everything about this person is a descriptor. If they are evil, it comes from their actions and motivations and like their history and the choices that they are actively making against their fellow humanoids in this city.
Well, they're people, of course. Like that's the thing. We all think about them as people in like our friend group and the people I play with online. We tend to like approach these characters, whether they're NPCs or NPCs, as full people. And that's how you have fun with them and make them real characters.
Yes, very much so. And for me, a lot of them is like, honestly, there's maybe only a few characters at all that I've decided are for sure like BBEG type shit, because of like big story stuff. But everyone else in that city, it is very much a like, hey, this could be a powerful ally for you or a really bad rival or enemy, depending on the interaction you have with them and like what side of the coin you're standing on, basically.
Yeah, like my character Anya has a penchant for collecting the most horrifying, like overpowered NPCs as like quasi uncles and aunts.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have our Dean of Decay, which is just like I think he's a Ceranos is the actual like monster. He's a full eldritch being that has consumed like so many things. Very scary, brown boy, like 9 feet tall, a good lad, just a good lad.
Good lad.
And then I have like Oak and Raina, which are like our friend Oak and then Ollie's like long time NPCs, not NPCs, PC.
That was my character for years, and then I've just like maxed out her shit along with her husband's, and now they're like on some legendary level type shit.
Yeah, like Oak is doing an interrogation scene and like out of session written role play with us right now. And like all I had Oak roll a check for something. I think it was for like intimidation. Like I've not seen Oak's character sheet in
this is a real
years.
sheet he built on D&D Beyond.
But that man typed in like a normal ass command into that dice bot, and I'll be damned if it did not say like plus 32.
What?
And like I was just weeping.
I don't know.
What level?
Do know.
I don't. Yes.
I think he's 20.
All of it. He has to be higher than 20, Chief.
Oh my god.
No, I don't think it can go higher than 20 on D&D Beyond.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I think it's items that he's.
I think it's a mix of being level 20 and the shit that he's chosen in those levels, along with items.
I know he has stupid items that he's probably homebrewed in there.
So question: what are the dumbest characters you have ever made?
Oh my god. Okay. I have a little pygmy dragonborn that looks like a leopard gecko named Cricket. They are a warlock and they like to hoard cantrips. So I have made it so that this warlock has a metric fuck ton of cantrips.
Amazing.
And it's quite insane how many they have. And then I have another one who is a little owlin. And he was raised by a tribe of orcs, and he believes on all levels except physical that he is an orc. And he does require, anytime he's in a room with people, to be the tallest person in the room. So while people are talking, he will just be stacking things to try to get like up above eye level of everybody else.
Incredible.
He has a very low intelligence. He is just a little guy. I fucking love him. Those are probably like two of my stupidest ones. And then I have another one that was like a sorcerer Kenku named Kink.
Incredible.
Yes.
My dumbest one, I think it was for some kind of random fucking unhinged holiday one shot that we ran. And he is a paladin rock gnome called Lord Godiva. He wears no clothing. He only has a beard. His beard is just really long, so it's fine. And he had a very unhinged voice. He's an Oath of the Ancients paladin. And yeah, just a little naked dwarf man.
I love this.
Running around.
Okay.
I think he talked like this. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what his voice was.
So I don't make a character unless I am certain it is dumb. But some of my favorites. So I did a live show with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, who were wonderful, doing D&D 5e, and I brought in a character I had made for home games, a massive looming and spooky necromancer, skeleton. His name is Arthur Ritus. And he talks like Edwin. Hello, I am Arthuritis. And he is the nicest necromancer. I love him.
I love him.
I have a goblin. I think he was a rogue. He dresses very fancy, and his name is Reginald Beef Wellington. And Reginald Beef Wellington is based off of the brainy gremlin from Gremlins 2. So, of course, he talks with a mid-Atlantic accent like Katharine Hepburn, which I love, a Katharine Hepburn accent. But,
love a mid-Atlantic accent. It's so
yes, good. But just, he is so fun to play. But I think my dumbest character, my favorite character, is from my home game that I'm doing right now. He is a gnome. So, of course, his name is my favorite name because I go hard for gnome names. He is a
Mhm.
cleric of Abadar, which is a Pathfinder god because we're playing Rise of the Rune Lords, but we've moved it into 5e because I'm playing with my family. And
Mhm.
they only know how to play 5e. And his name is Briggle Braggle Knit Willikins Esquire the Third.
Amazing.
Oh my goodness.
And
Does he make everybody say the whole thing every time?
yes. And well, at least Briggle Braggle. He will not
Okay.
accept a Briggle. He's very formal because he's from New Jersey, you understand.
Yeah,
And
so it becomes like a Percival Frederick Stein von Musel, Kowalski Roll the Third situation.
correct. And he instead of calling it Abadar, he calls his god the free hand of the market. Because of course gold must move freely from one hand to another, you see?
His god's just face palming up in the sky, like, good God.
Oh,
Why
I
have I
made
allowed this?
business cards for this gnome. Because of
incredible.
course, as a cleric of the free hand of the market, he must have business cards in gold and blue.
Gotta
And
do it.
it has a golden hand in the center. And not only does he do contracts and negotiations, and of course he will act as a bank, but he also does circumcisions.
Oh my god.
So just a one-stop shop, really,
Yes,
for
of
anything
course.
you might
Yeah,
need.
what for all your needs.
All your emergencies.
Yeah. Oh my god. I just remembered another one that I had, and I can't believe I didn't remember this. I played it at a one shot. It was a gnome bard,
Mhm.
and they had like a hard rock liar situation. The worst little curly mustache on like the most boyish face that you can imagine. Definitely looked like the mustache was almost fake. And their name was Nick L. Buck.
Amazing.
Nice. I vaguely remember this being.
You do remember this beat. And I loved it.
I've been playing Delta Green in like a personal game, just a short run, and I named my agent her legal name is Sharon Fribble.
Mhm.
Just what a dumb name. I love that one. What
So
a,
good.
yeah, Sharon Fribble, Agent Tang. We were T cell.
Agent Tang sounds cool though. Fribble, you can't get out from under that one. There's no way to spin that one.
No.
That's your family legal name.
Yeah.
Yep.
You were called that in elementary school and you cringed every time.
Hmm.
Oh my goodness. Well, actually, I do think that we're coming up on our time with with that chaotic cluster of
That feels like the
characters.
right tone to end on, honestly.
The right note
Heck yeah.
and on Fribble.
It's buttoned up.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Juicy. This has been so great to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Good.
Yeah, 100%, literally anytime. And tell the audience just once again who you are, where they can find you, and any cool projects you got going on.
Yeah, of course. I am Juicy Garland, a Boston area drag queen and super nerd. You can find me on the internet at Juicy Garland or at juicy.garland. Try one and find out where you'll find me. I'm also in a podcast and a Monster Hearts actual play, All Our Faults, which is releasing every other week, I believe, on Wednesdays. We just recently started, so it's a great time to catch up. It has been a treasure to participate in this. Our cast is wonderful. Tabletop Tailspinners, an RPG podcast network, has been helping us produce this, and I love being part of this network. I'm also doing a bunch of one-shots with the network as well, so keep your eyes peeled on my socials for more stuff there. I do a bunch of actual play streams as well, a lot of one-shots and longer form things. I have done stuff with Nathan Blades, and I recently did a Delta Green one shot in Phantom Arts Fest with them, and a bunch of others as well. So take a look at my socials and you'll see what I have done and will be doing. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on again. And we will catch y'all in the next one. Bye.
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 Table Talk is a podcast brought to you by Mythos Media Productions, bringing you a new episode every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Table Talk RPG, or check us out at our website, mythosmediaproductions.godaddyscites.com. All business inquiries can reach out to us via email at info@mythosmediaproductions.com.